All right, here we go. Here we go. Let's see if I can hear myself there. We're doing it. We're doing it. All right. So we're going to focus on this amazing presidential candidate, Marianne Williamson. Man, everybody's hyped over her. I really can't understand how. People try to claim she's an outsider. That's fine. Like, if you want to phrase it that way, but she's still part of, like, the Hollywood life, right? She's still there cozying up with Oprah. So, outsider in the sense for Washington specifically, sure. She already had a previous campaign that failed. So, I don't know how much longer people can claim she's an outsider. But if there was any doubt before whether or not people on the left should be supporting her, that goes out the window. It's out the window. We already knew that she, was flirting with Israel, was, very cozy, but we didn't know to what extent, right? She didn't come out waving the Israeli flag out here. Well, now again, it's just all love. It's just all love for this settler colonial state. So let's dive into it. She had an interview with Hassan Piker. So we're gonna skip a good majority of it. Really not interested in most of the things she has to say, but she is actively contributing to the normalization of Israel, right? As a state. So let's dive into that. Let's dive into that because uh, here's the thing, all right? When Malcolm X spoke about the difference between the wolf and the fox, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, right? Conservatives, liberals. What we're starting to see here is we're starting to see how liberal Zionists are slowly but surely normalizing the state of Israel. There's a lot of people that do this on the so-called left, right? On the broader left. And we're going to dive into those individuals specifically. But for now, we're diving into the lady of the hour, Marianne Williamson. So let's hear what she has to say.
Especially as it pertains to Israel.
Okay.
So Israel is America's greatest ally, according to both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. I want to hear in your own words how you deviate away from the Democratic establishment
I
on
do.
that.
How you deviate from the Democratic establishment immediately she says, "Oh, I do." Okay, so we're all expecting to hear something radical right now. Something perhaps revolutionary. Something that will most definitely deviate from the standard Democratic line, allies to Israel. For sure. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. Um, man, I just might be casting my vote for her. All right. So far, so good. She's different from the established Democrat line.
that front.
I do deviate from the Democratic establishment quite a bit. First of all, let me say I am Jewish.
Not so fast. Not so fast. What does her being Jewish have anything to do with the state of Israel, with the occupying force that is Israel? Hmm. See, here's the issue. Her being Jewish has nothing to do with the state of Israel. Or at least it shouldn't, unless you're promoting anti-Semitic stereotypes that all Jewish people are openly or secretly aligned with the state of Israel, right? Right off the bat. So even if you try to look at it from the other perspective, a more cynical one, that, well, she just provided cover for herself. If somebody would come after her for this stance as a so-called leftist, well, hold on a minute. Now you're being anti-Semitic because she's Jewish. So either you're propagating this false notion that inherently Jewish people will have a soft spot for the Zionist settler state of Israel, just due to their biological makeup, I guess, right? See, that's what I'm not understanding. Like, right off the bat, you're already propagating this false sense of notion, right? And actually, let's pause there for a moment, because I really do want to dive into why that is such a problematic, outright excuse for the genocidal existence of Israel. All right. We're going to pull out just very quickly this Democracy Now! Interview. Here we go. They were referencing Jayapal's statement here. And we're not really going to dive into so much what was said, but what we're going to do is illustrate this false sense of notion, right? This false idea that you could somehow whitewash the reality of Israel. All right.
As to the way that Representative Jayapal amended her statement, note that she didn't walk it back. She didn't say that Israel is a racist state. She wanted to make a distinction between Israeli people and the Israeli government. But what we need to understand here, and this is important for the audience to know,
a distinction between the state of Israel and its citizens, right? So a settler colonial project and the settlers.
that she used the term Israeli nation. And there is no such thing as an Israeli national within Israel's law. And this is the crux of the matter. Israel bifurcates Jewish nationality from Israeli citizens so that it can flow all of the possessory rights to land, to employment, to housing, to the right to life through Jewish nationality in a way that it's extraterritorialized. So that a pubescent Jewish teen who doesn't even know where Israel is on the map ostensibly has more claims than a Palestinian grandma who is 80 years old, who was born before the state of Israel was established in 1948, has to those rights. Under any situation, we would decry the system as being discriminatory, contravening liberal norms of democracy. But in this situation, the international community, specifically the United States and Western governments, want to insist that this exception is acceptable and exemplary. And what I want to emphasize is that it actually is not just harmful to Palestinians, as evidenced by the systematic killing of Palestinians, the removal and the harm inflicted upon them, but that these ideas are not contained just to Israel, Palestine, but in fact are exported. These ideas of what sovereignty should look like are exported across the world. We see it.
So we're going to stop it right there. We're probably going to double back onto that one, because honestly, the rest, everything she has to say is just spot on, but it really helps breaks things down in a lot more simple manner, right? It breaks things down in a simple manner. So how does that, pertain to what Marianne Williamson literally just off the bat started off with? Is that you're already doing this, right? You're already justifying why the prepubescent boy in across the world would have a almost genetic claim to be a quote unquote citizen of Israel over a Palestinian individual who has lived in Israel and see this is a mix up. Lived in Palestine for longer than the existence of Israel. And this whole like mix up here, that is the point, right? That is the point, is to just muddy the waters as much as possible in order to justify the existence of Israel. And right off the bat, this is what Marianne Williamson does. She has asked a question about Israel, and right off the bat says, I am Jewish. Irrelevant unless you're promoting this notion, right, of just birthright inheritance to Israel just out of being Jewish. So you really can't, off the bat, you cannot, avoid what she's doing, right? She's promoting this notion, this idea, this occupying colonial ideology. Otherwise, there's no reason to mention that she's Jewish. Unless she literally says, as a Jewish person, to deflect from anti-Semitism, not to deflect anti-Semitism, I'm against the occupation of Palestine. Free Palestine from the river to the sea, right? But she's not doing that here. She's preemptively establishing a defense for why she, I don't want to spoil it, but let's say for why she supports Israel. Let's go back.
And I am a lover of Israel. But there is at this point the furthest right government that there has ever been in Israel. From the Democratic establishment quite a bit. First of all, let me say I am Jewish and I am a lover of Israel.
I am a lover of Israel. Unless your argument is solely focused on the lesser of two evils, there is no justification for why you would just vote for an individual who, without shame, without hesitation, just comes right out and says, I am a lover of Israel. You cannot love Israel without loving the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. You just can't. Those two things are inherently connected. So whatever she says after this, to try and put a Band-Aid over the fact that she is an unrepenting, unabashed lover of Zionism, is irrelevant. If you're still supporting her, if you're still prompting her up, and you're not letting people know off the bat that she's a Zionist, that supporting her and promoting her is compromising their solidarity with Palestinians, then you're disingenuous. You're a Israeli apologist. There's no other way around it. There's no other way around it. And yet you will not hear Kyle Kalinske, Crystal, Hasan here, the inbred guard, you will not hear them once, not once, call her a Zionist in her face. There is no question about it now. You can't say, oh, well, I kind of disagree with her, political stance on Israel. Do you kind of disagree with Zionism? Or do you outright reject Zionism? Because that's all she's promoting here. That's it. That's all she's promoting here. There's no dodging, this claim that she's a Zionist. Because she's a lover of Israel. Let's continue.
But there is at this point the furthest right government that there has ever been in Israel.
Okay. The propaganda, the liberal Zionism, this is why it's so dangerous. This is why it's so dangerous. Immediately, you create a more evil individual in Netanyahu, right? A more evil institution or party. Mira, los perros están calientes, están allá afuera. Ladre y ladre. All right. I don't know how much y'all can hear that, but there it is. That's reality. So, this is what liberals do. Fearmonger, right? In order to evade their actions, in order to make their positions seem more reasonable. Sure, I love Israel, despite the ethnic cleansing project that is required for its existence, but there's other people who are further to the right of me, right? They don't want to contain and oppress the Palestinians. They want to completely eradicate them right off the bat. See, the way that liberal Zionists promoted is a slow and steady, complete conquest of Palestine and Palestinians. The way that these so-called extreme right-wing Zionists is they just want to do it off the bat, unashamed. Okay. This is the game that they play, the liberals play. And we're seeing it now with liberal Zionism. We're not as bad as what they say. We could be worse, is what they say. And yet what they are is genocide-loving, colonial project enthusiasts. It's ridiculous. It's to support her after this without outright calling her a Zionist. You're somehow in the bag, whether it's to access for views and subscribers, whether it's because you're secretly or outright openly a Zionist yourself. But you got to keep an eye out for the liberal Zionists, because they're the ones that normalize the settler colonial project. They normalize the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians by in one turn saying, oh, the current political establishment in Israel is too far to the right. Ours wouldn't be as brutal. And yet they don't challenge the actual existence of this project. So let's continue on with this. Ese perro no se calla, tampoco yo.
Settlements are illegal. The occupation is illegal.
I honestly was not planning on pausing it this much, but it's literally every other sentence that she says is the embodiment of liberal Zionism. No. It's not that there's just illegal settlements. It's that the existence of Israel itself is illegal. It is the illegal occupation of Palestine. So when you say I'm a lover of Israel, as she did, you're saying you're a lover of settlements, quote unquote, illegal or otherwise. It's the double speak, right? This is what liberals have perfected. Okay, I'm going to point at something that is wrong while actively supporting the exact same thing, but I am normalizing it, right? They have gone too far. What is already done is bad, but hey, at least it's not worse. What did Malcolm X say? Right? About pulling that knife off from your back halfway and claiming that that's progress. This is exactly what she's doing. This is exactly what liberal Zionists do. Israel shouldn't expand, is what they say. Nah, Israel shouldn't exist on Palestinian land. Please, should have been set up in Germany. It would have avoided a lot of problems back then. I would still support it. I would still support it, just so we could see outright and clear how anti-Semitism in Europe has never waned. Because this is the anti-Semitism in Europe is why we have these issues connected with a white supremacist ideology that the Zionists appropriated. Let's carry on. Let's go. Let's see if we can make it through 2 sentences without me pausing it. All right.
And the blockade of Gaza is wrong. Now, that $3.8 billion in military aid, there is a memorandum of understanding. So that's there, unless there is an act of Congress to pull that back until 2028. However, the president can, and as president,
thanks, Obama.
Pardon? Yeah, thank you. That.
And just on a side note, because I'm a hater, I hate rich boys. You know this. I hate champagne socialists. Y'all know this. I hate silver spoon Nepo babies. Y'all should know this. Can you just not be or try so hard to be a fucking meme? Bro, in front of you, she's talking about loving ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. And the only time where you truly interject is to make a little quip. That didn't even land, by the way. That's the real awkward, sad part. Like, sure, know your audience, but know who you're speaking to. Man's just worried about his chat. Man's just worried about making more money. He's not worried about holding these people accountable. Hey, I asked the question he's going to claim. I asked the question. Thanks. Any pushback there? Where's your spine at? Sitting on your ass all day. Sitting on your ass all day is not good for the spine. All right, let's go. Let's go. Technically, I didn't pause it because of her this time.
As president, I would absolutely, and could, by the way, the power would be given me to insist that that money not in any way be used in a way that transgresses human rights as we stand for them or purport to stand for them, and as we should stand for them with any ally.
Do you all see it? She's basically saying, hey, we're still going to continue to fund Israel, but we're going to put certain restrictions around the brutal force in which that money can, that money can be applied to. So she's like, no, we're still going to sustain them financially, but we're just going to ask them to play nice. Just play nice. No, she shouldn't be. Israel shouldn't be an ally, right, to a so-called democracy. We're going to make sure that we're going to fund them, the settler colonial project, but we're going to put restrictions so that they don't commit too many human rights atrocities. Because the existence of Israel means human rights atrocities towards the Palestinians. Again, it's a doublespeak. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, yes, we're going to fund you in your existence of this settler colonial project, but be nice to the natives. Or, well, you don't have to be nice to the natives. Just don't be as mean. Cleanse them in a PC manner, right? Or we don't like the negative PR that you're giving us. It's a doublespeak, man. It's the liberalism that is the disgusting part. It is why the fox is more dangerous than the wolf. You know what you're dealing with the fox. With the wolf, I'm sorry. I'm mixing everything up. It's what liberalism does. It's literally what it does. It just mushes your brain. You know the intentions of the wolf. You see how people actively organize and participate. People that normally wouldn't under the fox, under the Democrats, under the liberals. Organize and participate against the wolf, the Republicans, the conservatives. Let's carry on because I want to stick to this international, question. I want to stick to the Palestinian struggle. I want to stick to the vile, just evil normalization of colonization that liberals participate in. Liberal Zionists, as Marianne Williamson is, undoubtedly. Anybody that denies that, anybody that does not label her as such when speaking to her, is disingenuous, is a Zionist apologist, does not give a damn about Palestinians. If you're going to hit me with, well, she's a lesser of evil, with Biden, who's also very much a lover of Israel, be upfront about it. Be upfront about why she is still evil. All right? So call her a Zionist in her face. Label her as such when introducing her. The same way that you would a South African who supported apartheid. Because this being a Zionist is active, right? It's an active process. Apologizing, sanitizing Zionism is promoting the eradication of Palestinians in their homeland. There's no way around it. All right, let's carry on.
So what are your boundaries as it pertains to Israel? Like, do you consider Israel to be an apartheid state, or is that a bridge too far? Do you think that criticisms of Israel from the likes of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar are wrong or inconsistent? Because this is something that the Democratic Party, again, has claimed. They instead of addressing massacres happening in Jenin or anything of that nature, will turn around and seek to punish their own members in their own caucus, people that have, familial relationships of the oppressed people. And yeah.
All right. Again, I'll be critical. I'll be a hater. Can you be concise? I don't know if this is just kind of a character or an act that he does, like, I'm a little awkward, right? Like, bro, you were groomed for this type of, occupation by your uncle. You were groomed to be able to articulate yourself when interviewing, when questioning, when pushing back on political figures, but people in positions of power. You were groomed to do this by your uncle, right? And this is the issue with Nepo babies. Like, you would assume that you wouldn't be so incompetent, that it wouldn't be so embarrassing. Just ask a concise question. Why are you rambling? Like, even Marianne's like, wow, like, get to the point. How are you going to hold somebody's feet to the fire if you're running around the campground just to get to the fire, to your point, to your pushback? But he's like tiptoeing around it. Spit it out, man. Like, just, she's a Zionist. What do you, like, just ask her. And this is the thing. The reason why these like rambling on setups for questions or a rambling question is so annoying is because like just me going off, I got to rewind it because I'm like, I forgot what he actually asked. What did he ask? Right? Like, just let's go back. Let's hear it. I'll try not to get upset. Just be direct. Just be direct. You know, use your time wisely with these individuals. All right.
Or to stand for them, and as we should stand for them with any ally.
So what are your boundaries as it pertains to Israel? Like, do you consider Israel to be an apartheid state, or is that a bridge too far? Do you think that criticisms of Israel from the likes of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar are wrong or inconsistent? Because this is something that the Democratic Party, again, has claimed. They instead of addressing massacres happening in Jenin or anything of that nature, will turn around and seek to punish their own members in their own caucus, people that have, familial relationships of the oppressed people. And yeah.
I think that there are laws, there are certain laws and certain rules in Israel, which could legitimately be called apartheid laws.
Okay. Again, with liberals, you have to understand this. They want as much wiggle room as possible in order to both speak to the individuals who they're trying to recruit, to vote for them, to their organizations, to believe in, their ideas, their ideals, while at the same time avoiding accountability. Right? Because that responsibility, that accountability requires you to take action, because you're either in a position of power or vying for a position of power. So the key word here is could be. It could be construed as apartheid. Some laws could be. That's wild. You see the wiggle room? That some of it could possibly, maybe, perhaps, if you look at it a certain way, under the right light, maybe, if you squint, yeah, I can see how somebody, not me specifically, not I, but someone out there could possibly view it as apartheid. Could be. It's a spinelessness. It's a cowardness. It's a double speak. It's a two-facedness of it all. It's just like most people, even liberal Zionists, are like, yeah, it's apartheid. But this presidential candidate that you're promoting, that you're advocating as the lesser of two evils, right? If that is your argument, because a lot of people aren't even saying that. They're just saying, oh, no, she is further left. Let's promote her. She's not. They're not even saying that she's part of this, balancing of evilness. That she's not even registered or on the chart of being evil, according to them. Or at least they haven't said that yet. They're just saying she's further left than Biden. So she's further left than Biden. Okay, cool. That's great. But where's she at? Where is she at personally? She's not even to the point where she can say Israel is an apartheid state, despite a lot of liberal Zionists having to own up to that. Liberal Zionists like Sam Cedar, right? Even he says that it's an apartheid state. He won't call for a free Palestine. He will never say that. He has never said that. Let's hear him say that on MSNBC next time that he's hosting. Next time his little best friend over there throws him a fucking bone, because that's all he's good for. Coattail riding. Couldn't make it on your own. Not even his show was his own. We all know how quickly Michael Brooks overshadowed him. But let's stick to the subject. Even Sam Cedar, a liberal Zionist that cozies up to H3H3, Ethan, and his IDF wife, right? Even he has to say that Israel's an apartheid state. He's not calling for a free Palestine. He's just saying, no, Israel's an apartheid state. And that's that liberal Zionist mentality of saying we can make it into a democratic state where Palestinians are treated as equal citizens, instead of the reality of the situation is complete liberation of Palestinians and of their land. Go establish Israel in Germany. Hold them accountable. Hold Europe accountable for all the pogroms. Hold them accountable for all the anti-Semitism. Hold them accountable for their hatred towards the Jewish people, for their anti-Semitism. I'm in full support of that. All right. Could be. But she's even unwilling to say that it's an apartheid state. It could be. Some laws. Yeah, sure. All right, let's go.
I do believe that it is legitimate that there be a safe haven for Jews. However, a country that is a safe haven for Jews should not be an unsafe place for others. And with the founding, the original ideal of Israel was that it would not be an unsafe place for others. And unfortunately, they're actually moving backwards at this point.
All right. If originally it was going to be a safe haven that was not going to be, antagonistic or prosecuting others, but now they're going backwards, right? And again, this is the liberal Zionist aspect of it all, is the doublespeak of the situation. So unless I misunderstood her or didn't quite understand what she's saying, she's essentially saying originally it was supposed to be a safe haven for Jewish people specifically, but a safe place for everybody else, or at least not discriminatory against anybody else. And now, as the government's moving for the right, now we're going backwards. And that's what I understood her to say. Again, the double speak that liberal Zionists do, gets a little bit jarring, gets a little bit confusing. But from my understanding, this is what she's trying to say. So I try not to get too boring here, but I enjoy reading. My dyslexic ass enjoys reading, despite being a slow reader, despite drifting off and daydreaming about who knows what. Me encanta leer. That's what it is. So, although I have not dove into the current state of, or the current, the modern history of the Israeli occupation, one thing that I think is fundamental for anybody, especially when engaging with this topic, is, again, I'm not an expert, but at least understand the foundations of Zionism. Understand the initial excuses, the outright blatant admission that Zionists were, at least in the past, willing, to say out loud, right, to the world, really, that Palestine would be turned into Israel as it's theirs. So let's start kind of with a more simple, like reading definition here, I guess. I'll try to be quick. Okay, let's go here. Eretz Israel, the name for Palestine in the Jewish religion, had been revered throughout the centuries by generations of Jews as a place for holy pilgrimage, never as a future secular state. Jewish tradition and religion clearly instructed Jews to await the coming of the promised Messiah at the quote, the end of times, unquote, before they can return to Israel as a sovereign people in a Jewish theocracy. That is, the obedient servants of God. This is why today several streams of ultra-Orthodox Jews are either non or anti-Zionist. In other words, Zionism secularized and nationalized Judaism to bring their project to fruition. And Zionist thinkers claimed the biblical territory, and recreated, indeed reinvented it as a cradle of their new nationalist movement as they saw it. Palestine was occupied by, quote, strangers, unquote, and had to be repossessed. Quote, strangers here, unquote, here meant everyone not Jewish who had been living in Palestine since the Roman period. In fact, for many Zionists, Palestine was not even an occupied land when they first arrived there in 1882, but rather an empty one. The native Palestinians who lived there were largely invisible to them, or if not, were part of nature's hardship, and as such were to be conquered and removed. Nothing, neither rocks nor Palestinians, was to stand in the way of the national redemption of the land the Zionist movement coveted. It's from Ethnic Cleansing, right? Again, not a book that I've dove heavily into, at least not yet. But it's the, as somebody who is, unfortunately due to the education system of the United States is just very ignorant of international politics and is very susceptible to the Western chauvinist, white supremacist narrative. Just learning the roots and the foundations of these settler projects is like just fundamental. Like before you could even speak on it, like just understand that, this is about conquest, this is about colonization. So let's continue again, because we're going to dive further into this whole idea, this notion, this liberal Zionist propaganda that Israel was not meant to be so far right wing, right? That this the existence of a state dependent on the ethnic cleansing of its native population was not supposed to be so extreme. That's how they normalize this shit.
And sometimes you tell your friends the truth. What Donald Trump did was he went with the far right on the issue of Israel. What what President Biden is doing, which the corporatist Democrats are doing, is hands off, all of that, fear of AIPAC, all of those things that we understand. And I would be very hands on, and I would be taking a stand for equally robust support on the part of the United States for both the security and the human rights of both peoples.
Okay.
You know what it is? It's again, it's either reading between the lines or it's just those last few caveats that you throw in there. What is it? The safety and security of both peoples. You see how the liberal Zionists equate safety and security of Palestinians with the safety and security with the occupying force of Israel? As if somehow it's like an even playing field. That's what they want. They want you to believe that, like, hey, we're all just trying to get along here. We're all struggling. It's difficult for all of us. No. You are the occupying force. You are the quote unquote settlers, the invaders, the colonizers. There is no safety for both of us because your safety is dependent on the oppression, on the cleansing of the native population. All right. Let's carry on.
You say both people, so that's why I'm trying to still understand. The Palestinian population is, as you said, under conditions that could.
Let's hear the pushback. Here it is.
by legal standard be considered apartheid conditions? Are you willing to withhold what we consider aid, but is a defense
Well, as
contract?
I just said to you, there is a
Yeah.
memorandum of understanding. It would take an act of Congress to withhold the money until 2028. What I would do, what the president can do, is insist that that money not be used in anything having to do with settlements, anything having to do with the occupation, anything that in any way transgresses human rights as we in the United States describe them.
What is to do with
This is why the battle, like, for language is so important when you're talking to um, proponents, defenders of colonization, right? This is why. Okay. Notice how even Hassan at this point, when bringing up, the plight of Palestinians, says could be perceived as apartheid. So because she already established that it could be under certain circumstances, right? Under the right angle, it could be. Now somebody who, objectively is more supportive of Palestinians than Marianne Williamson, right? He is the lesser two evils in this situation. Even he at this point is adopting her language, right? Liberal Zionist language of saying could possibly. He is no longer upright saying no, it's apartheid. This is what it is. We may disagree on it, but the fact is it's apartheid. Has been generally accepted even by the majority of the liberal Zionist community. So she already won in that regard. She already managed to whittle him down. She already managed to bend him to her liberal Zionist will. So he's adopting that language. And it's not just about being like a good interviewer, a good host. They're in her home, in his home. It's not even about that. It's just, you don't need to be disrespectful. You don't have to be aggressive. You just, stick to the facts. It's an apartheid state. It's not could be perceived. It is. She chooses to, leave it questionable in order to give herself some wiggle room, right? As liberals do, right? To not stand for justice, to not stand for liberation, right? She's choosing to do that. Do not comply. That's how they win, essentially. That's how liberal Zionists win. That's how liberals have been winning. It's just the compromise. Oh no, yeah. We'll take your perspective on it and try to like change things under the circumference that you've given us, under the wiggle room that you allow us. Yeah, no. That's bullshit. Get the could out of here. It is. All right, let's hear that back a little bit.
Rights of both peoples.
Okay. You say both people, so that's why I'm trying to still understand. The Palestinian population is, as you said, under conditions that could, by legal standard, be considered apartheid conditions. Are you willing to withhold what we consider aid, but is a defense
contract?
contract?
I just said to you, there is a memorandum of understanding. It would take an act of Congress to withhold the money until 2028. What I would do, what the president can do, is insist that that money not be used in anything having to do with settlements, anything having to do with the occupation, anything that in any way transgresses human rights as we in the United States describe them.
What is to do with what do we also do with the obvious? You already said it's illegal. The occupation is illegal, especially in West Bank. What is to be done with the already existing settler areas in the region?
We've got a problem. You've got a lot
from the American perspective too, because we are an incredibly important ally to Israel, obviously, and we do have negotiation power in the process.
What the U.S. president can and should do is make it clear that we believe, it's not even our belief, it is fact, those settlements are transgress against international law. It's interesting because when Obama was at Tel Aviv University, he did give a speech in which it was clear that he understood what was really going on there. What the problem was actually effectuating some of the views that he himself articulated. I know people. I know them in Israel and Palestine, and I know people here who do represent a next generation consciousness about that area. And I would gather them and I would seek to harness that kind of consciousness here in the United States for an entirely new conversation. And I would make it clear the leadership of Israel would know, and I think the leadership among the Palestinians would know as well, that the United States stands for something which is far more enlightened and fair and just than what is occurring now.
This is why I'm generally concerned for her political popularity, for individuals who embrace her, who excuse, uh, the spiritualness angle that she's approaching things with. What did she just say right now at the end? What material, concrete, positions did she propose there at the end? At the end, when she wrapped up, right? Let's hear it back. Let's hear it back. Just the end part, and then we'll go further back.
A next generation consciousness about that area, and I would gather them and I would seek to harness that kind of consciousness here in the United States for an entirely new conversation. And I would make it clear the leadership of Israel would know, and I think the leadership among the Palestinians would know as well, that the United States stands for something which is far more enlightened and fair and just than what is occurring now.
All right. Is this embrace? I had to mute it, right? So the next consciousness, enlightened, fair and just. Okay, this is the issue. Is this embrace of, well, we're just gonna manifest better living conditions for Palestinians, I guess, right? Like for all and including Palestinians. Yeah. This word salad of just spiritual, just word vomit is what's concerning about her, just politically, because she's popping off on TikTok. Well, yeah, there's a lot of kids in TikTok, and this whole embrace of like, it's the pop culture of spirituality, right? Mixing with the psychology, right? Of pop psychology is the real issue here, where it's kind of like, well, you don't need to organize and change things, because in reality, you just have to be at peace with yourself. You have to be more enlightened, like pursue, uh, pursue your inner peace before you can establish peace around the world. It's very much like Jordan Peterson, right? It's this whole rambling about spirituality or the higher consciousness, of not directly connecting it to religion, although Peterson, goes back and forth with Judeo-Christian values or whatever. Um, but you kind of see this too on the left angle, the liberal perspective with Marianne Williamson, right? She's not outright, talking about Christianity or any of those established religions, but she's being more spiritual about it, more enlightened about it. And it's like, it's irrelevant, man. If what did George Bush say? Like, God spoke to me, right? Like, this is the equivalent of it, of just, a higher purpose, a higher force, an energy, an enlightenment, right? It's just gibberish. And she evaded the question, right? Because the question was, all right, we've established that you believe that these advancing settlements, these current settlements are illegal, but what do we do with the fact that essentially the state of Israel is illegal itself? And she just just goes around the fucking question. I'm trying to be as professional and just like not curse as possible, because I want to make it count when I do. This isn't just filler. All right. There's a lot of people use explicitives as fillers. And it's just like, yo, is that how you talk? Like, to your friends, to people that you know? Is that how you talk in when this camera shuts off, where you're not trying to get the money, just be yourself, man. Jeez. Let's go back to Marianne.
What do you think about our treatment of Cubans and Cuban population, Cuba as a country?
All right. So this is definitely gonna have to be like another video, another angle. I'm gonna take it with it because Cuba is like another big conversation. People try to simplify it when in reality it's just the continual attempt of colonizing, quote unquote, the Americas, right? But what I do want to dive into a little bit is before we go, because you know what, let me, this has really bothered me. The initial question was not about settlements, right? It was about Israel itself.
But there is at this point, the furthest right would do what the president can do is insist that that money not be used in anything having to do with settlements, anything having to do with
the already existing settler areas in the region.
There you go. The already existing settler areas in the region. Already existing. He's not saying like the new settler projects, right? The new occupation areas, right? The continuing of the ethnic cleansing. He's saying essentially Israel as it exists, right? Is he going that far with it, but he's just pussyfooting around, spineless, or am I misunderstanding this? But she goes on and just kind of evades the question, goes back to furthering expansion of Israel, right? It's so obnoxious here.
transgresses human rights as we in the United States describe them.
What is to do with what do we also do with the obvious? You already said it's illegal. The occupation is illegal, especially in West Bank. What is to be done with the already existing settler areas in the region?
We've got a problem. Got a lot
from the American perspective too, because we are an incredibly important ally to Israel, obviously, and we do have negotiation power in the process.
What the U.S. president can and should do is make it clear that we believe it's not even our belief; it is fact. Those settlements are transgress against.
Yeah, I just don't know if I'm getting lost in translation. Que alguien me explique, right? Like I just don't. From my understanding, he's saying, okay, we already agree that the settlements are wrong. Is he saying like just Israel in itself as a settler state? Or is he saying like, now that we agree that they're wrong, what do we do with them, right? And essentially what she's saying is like, well, we're just going to make sure that financially we tell them like, you can't have our support if you continue to expand, right? But she doesn't really propose a way to pull back those new settlements, much less to end occupation in general, right? But that's the problem with one, speaking to a liberal Zionist in this specific case, but two, when you're asking these questions, being spineless about it and not just being direct. Just say what you mean. If you support Palestinians, like let it be known. Like there's no reason for you to be pussyfooting around, especially because you're not supposed to be like a legitimate journalist. You're not doing a serious interview according to the awkward style that you just delivering everything. This is different. I'm unique. The chat, right? Like if you're doing all that, like then you can be a little rude, a little aggressive. You can kind of just throw it out there. It's like, okay, sure, you're a Zionist, cool. You're a liberal Zionist. All right, we could be upfront about it because you're supposedly not concerned with professionalism, right? You're not concerned with being like the other interviews that she's conducted, even though her circuit, she's very active in the quote unquote like alt media of the left. But let's dive into because she's a joke, right? Like everybody understands that. The DNC already said like, nah, we're going with Biden. Honestly, like supporting her, if anything, is just a misunderstanding that the DNC can basically do whatever the hell they want. They've come out, they've admitted this. In that sense, like the Republican Party, the GOP is a little bit more democratic, ironically, but because they understand that, you know, their audience, you know, like, all right, what heel do you want? We'll put them out there for you. The DNC is a little bit like, no. We'll tell you what's on the menu. We'll tell you what's gonna go on the dinner table, and you're gonna like it. You're gonna take it. Why? Because those other guys are so much worse. But let's dive into a little bit of the history of Israel and kind of just doing our best to connect it to separate it from liberal Zionism, and just doubling down on the fact that if we're talking about colonization here, that's what it is. We're talking about colonization. There's no two ways around it. Liberal Zionists will do their best to say, no, we could establish whether it's a two-state solution, which, I mean, off the bat, the people were telling you, like, that's never going to work. And now it's completely off the table. It's no longer like a talking point for liberal Zionists. Let's just give them time, and they'll show you who they are. Just read between the lines, and they'll show you, you know, they'll let you know what they think of you real quick. So let's dive into this. It's really hot in here, but I'm gonna have to turn off the AC because once I start reading, I don't want. I'm not sure if it's picking up the sound or not, but just to be safe, let's start sweating once again. Okay, so this is from the 100 Years War on Palestine. There it is. By Rashid Khalidi. And again, it's just, you don't have to dive into the modern history of it all. Like, just understand the root and where it comes from, right? Its origin. And just right off the bat, there from the beginning, you will see that as a so-called leftist, somebody who supports the liberation of the oppressed, of the subjugated, there shouldn't be concerns really about like the current state of the so-called Israel-Palestine conflict. Like that should be just added bonus material to really hold down the Zionists for why their settler occupying state is just barbaric and should be dissolved, or if not dissolved, just reestablished in Germany. Which is that's my proposition, because I want to see the chaos. I want to see the anti-Semitism truly exposing Europe for what it is, for how disgusting and barbaric they are. Honestly, like the best recommendation for the history in regards to anti-Semitism in Europe and the pogroms, check out American Holocaust, the Conquest of the New World. American Holocaust, the Conquest of the New World, by David Standard. Right? He does a beautiful job at just breaking down both anti-Semitism, the ethnic cleansing of Jewish people in Europe, and the treatment towards the Irish, towards Ireland, the outright colonization of Ireland. Right? It's a great book. That's why it's a book that I read before really diving into Palestine and Israel as an occupying force, as a colonizing project. So right off the bat, like I was like, oh, okay, like whatever kind of hesitation that a lot of people have in terms of like, oh, I don't want to be perceived as anti-Semitic. Like I did not have that at all. One, where I'm from, there's not a big Jewish population, and people who are Jewish I have met like in my life. I didn't know they were Jewish until after the fact. They were just gabachos, they were gringos, güeros to me. It wasn't, I didn't even register the religious aspect of it all. So for me, I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, like no, without a doubt, like Israel should have been established in Germany. Israel should be in Europe for all the horrors that the Jewish people have gone through in Europe, right? And honestly, like, and we could dive into Norm Finkelstein at a later date. I'm not gonna do that now because especially his current like views on things just go to show that, like, man, like, if you live long enough, right? If you live long enough, getting old, man, it's scary. Um, Getting old is scary not because you get closer to death. You should never fear death, but it's scary because it's like, damn, who am I going to become? Right? Who am I going to become without realizing it? As just time continues to march forward, as progress is being attempted, to being made. But now I'm rambling. Not a lot of explicits in there, but now I'm rambling. Okay. So I don't want to dive too much in the middle of something, but let's just stick to the colonization aspect of it all. Jewish domination of Palestine, Herzl employed a justification that has been a touchstone for colonists at all times and in all places, and that would become a staple argument for Zionist movement. Jewish immigration would benefit indigenous people of Palestine. Quote, it is their well-being, their individual wealth, which will increase by bringing in our own, unquote, echoing the language he had used in Der Judestaat. Herzl added, quote, in allowing immigration to a number of Jews, bringing their intelligence, their financial acumen, and their means of enterprise to the country, no one can doubt that the well-being of the entire country will be the happy result. And this is like the real sadistic thing about Zionists is how they promote stereotypes, right? How Zionism itself promotes stereotypes and is in fact anti-Semitic, right? Because just weaponizing of an identity at that point. So let's continue here. It's getting hot. The modern history of Palestine can be best understood in these terms as a colonial war waged against the indigenous population by a variety of parties to force them to relinquish their homeland to another people against their will. No if and or could possibly be's in that. All right? So here we go. Although this war shares many of the typical characteristics of other colonial campaigns, it also possesses a very specific characteristic as it was fought by and on behalf of the Zionist movement, which itself was and is very particular. Which itself was and is a very particular colonial project. Further complicating this understanding is the fact that this colonial conflict, conducted with massive support from external powers, became over time a national confrontation between two national entities, two peoples. Underlying this feature and amplifying it was a profound resonance for Jews and also for many Christians of their biblical connection to the historic land of Israel. Expertly woven into modern political Zionism, this resonance has become integral to it. A late 19th century colonial national movement thus adorned itself with a biblical quote that was powerfully attractive to Bible reading Protestants in Great Britain and the United States, blinding them to the modernity of Zionism and to its colonial nature. For how could Jews be, quote, colonizing, unquote, the land where their religion began? He goes on to say, our concern here is its colonial nature, as this aspect has been as underappreciated as it is central, even though these qualities typically of other colonial campaigns are everywhere in evidence in modern history of Palestine. Goes on to say, they also claim that they will leave the native population, the Zionists, better off as a result of their rule. The quote civilizing and quote progressive unquote nature of their colonial project serves to justify whatever enormities are perpetrated against the indigenous population to fulfill their objectives. All right. Again, it's a colonial project. And I just want to touch on one last thing here. Yo, I don't know if y'all can see this, but I'm sweating. It is hot in here. All right. Okay. We'll touch on a couple of things here. Yes. Okay. There's like Joe Botensky wrote in 1923, quote, every native population in the world resists colonists as long as it has the slightest hope of being able to rid itself of the danger of being colonized. That is what the Arabs in Palestine are doing and what they will persist in doing as long as there remains a solitary spark of hope that they will be able to prevent the transformation of Palestine into the land of, quote, Israel, unquote. But Marianne over here, a liberal Zionist, is outright revising history, whitewashing history in order to claim that originally Israel was not meant to be so cruel as the current extreme right-wing politicians are trying to make it, but yet going backwards. Okay. Let's see. This is great here. Unremarkably, once colonialism took on a bad order in the post-World War II era of decolonization, the colonial origins and practice of Zionism and Israel were whitewashed. There we go. And conveniently forgotten in Israel and the West. In fact, Zionism, for 2 decades, coddled stepchild of British colonialism, rebranded itself as an anti-colonial movement. The occasion for the drastic makeover was a campaign of sabotage and terrorism launched against British after it drastically limited its support of Jewish immigration with the 1939 White Paper on the eve of World War II. This falling out between erstwhile allies to help them fight the Palestinians in late 1930s, Britain had armed and trained the Jewish settlers it allowed to enter the country, encouraged the outlandish idea that the Zionist movement was itself anti-colonial. I gotta turn on the AC. I was getting ridiculous. So there you have it, right? And this is why liberal Zionism is so dangerous, right? The same thing that Marianne Williamson, Sam Cedar promote, Ethan Klein promotes, right? It's insidious in its nature, right? It literally, it's a doublespeak, right? It's saying, no. Israel itself is an anti-colonial project now, as they're actively eradicating, cleansing the native population, the Palestinians. You cannot make this stuff up. And honestly, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, just dive into the origins of it all. And they're saying it themselves. Like, Zionists were very proud of this initially, as was stated. Pre-World War II, they're saying, no. We're embarking in a colonial project. Like, that's what we're doing. This is what it is. Because the rest of Europe was like, go get it. Go do your thing. Yep. Oh, you're leaving Europe. You're leaving Europe. You're getting away from us finally. And doing your own thing. And in the process, messing with non-Christians. And in the process, messing with non-white people, even better. Or non-European, right, people, even better. Like, 2 birds, 1 stone. Let's go. All right. And then they flip the script, and after World War II, and just like, nah, like, we're actually the liberating force here. Yeah. You should support us, people around the world. Like we are the true victims. And that's why we do have to dive into North Eagle scene at some point. The weaponization of the Holocaust post World War II is so crucial to understand, to rid the just insincere and complete unrelated connection, right, of guilt for what happened to Jewish people. And again, in the book, the Holocaust, I believe it's the Holocaust industry. We just forget about everybody else, right? We don't talk about the Roman people. We don't talk about the LGBT community in Germany. We don't talk about the disabled. Like we just focus on Jewish people, and we impose, or Zionists impose, that guilt onto Israel to excuse its existence, right? But there's just two more things I want to dive into with this book. Rashid Khalidi just did a great job. I hope I'm not butchering his name too much. Excuse me real quick. All right. Here we go. All right. Today, the conflict that was engineered by this classic 19th century European colonial venture in a non-European land, supported from 1917 onward by the greatest Western imperial power of its age, is rarely described in such unvarnished terms. Indeed, those who analyze not only Israeli settlement efforts in Jerusalem, the West Bank, and the occupying Syrian Golden Heights, but the entire Zionist enterprise from the perspective of its colonial settler origins and nature, are often vilified. Many cannot accept the contradictions inherent in the idea that although Zionism undoubtedly succeeded in creating a thriving national entity in Israel, its roots are as a colonial settler project, as are those of other modern countries, the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Nor can they accept that it would not have succeeded but for the support of the great imperial powers, Britain and later the United States. Zionism, therefore, could not be and was both a national. Zionism, therefore, could be and was both a national and a colonial settler movement at one and the same time. That's what I'm talking about. The complexities of Zionism, once you actually look into the roots, are like, oh, okay, there's a convenient switch around there. But at the end of the day, it's a colonial project. I feel for the Jewish people, right? And even that concept is so broad, because we see how Black Jewish people are also treated in Israel, right? Which completely like ruins the facade of it being a safe haven for all Jewish people. I was gonna say Israelite, but I was like, I don't want to conflate it there. But yeah, it just kind of ruins the facade there. Now, those Black Jewish people are also unquestionably oppressing Palestinians. But the point being is that the national aspect of it was very much European. It's very much rooted in a Eurocentric mentality. Like, there's no two ways about that. So let's wrap it up here. Palestinians have been accused by those who sympathize with their oppressors of wallowing in their own victimization. It is fact, however, that like all indigenous people confronting colonial wars, the Palestinians faced odds that were daunting and sometimes impossible. It is also true that they have suffered repeated defeats and have often been divided and badly led. None of this means that Palestinians could not sometimes defy those odds successfully, or that at other times they could not have made better choices. But we can never overlook the formidable international and imperial forces arrayed against them, the scale of which has often been dismissed, and in spite of which they have displayed remarkable resilience. It really isn't that complicated. It really isn't that complicated. It's a colonial project, and we should support the liberation of Palestinians from the river to the sea. Unquestionably, let's establish Israel in Germany and make Europe pay for the pogroms. Let's make Europe pay for the anti-Semitism. Let's make Europe pay for the expulsion of Jewish people. Let's make Europe pay for the Holocaust. Let's make Europe pay for the anti-Semitism. It's that simple. And just as it's that simple, we have to say free Palestine. We cannot support a lover of Israel. And if you're interviewing this person, and if you're talking about this person, Marianne Williamson, and you're not calling her a Zionist, up front, no questions asked, because she is a lover of Israel, then you're disingenuous, you're a liar, you're essentially promoting Zionism. It's that simple. A ver qué vamos a hacer para la próxima. We're going to do something. I'm not sure what it will be next, but this is fun. This is fun. Para la próxima. Gracias.